83 seconds. That is how long Pam Bondi sat completely still after Ted Lieu placed a single sheet of paper face down on the desk in front of him and asked her one question about a wire transfer she had testified did not exist. Not shifting in her chair, not reaching for her water glass, not exchanging glances with the two attorneys flanking her. Still. The way a person goes still when a number they believed was buried inside a financial system no congressional committee could access in time appears on a single printed page in the hands of the one person in that chamber they had spent 6 weeks preparing to deflect. 83 seconds of silence that ended not with a denial but with a request to confer with counsel that told everyone watching exactly what that number meant. Watch this video until the very end, because what Ted Lieu did this morning is the most precise financial ambush I have covered in 11 years of reporting on congressional oversight. And if you are new here, subscribe right now and turn on notifications, because the next 48 hours are going to move faster than anything this investigation has produced. Ted Lieu is not a typical member of Congress. The representative from California holds a law degree from Georgetown University and a computer science degree from Stanford, but the credential that matters for understanding this morning is the one he rarely leads with in a hearing room. He is a veteran of the United States Air Force Judge Advocate General Corps, a JAG officer and military prosecutor. For years, Lieu built cases in environments where procedural failure is career-ending and the rules of evidence are absolute. He learned in those rooms that the most effective moment in any interrogation is not the confrontation. It is the silence after you place the document that destroys the testimony the witness has already committed to on the record. But the credential that matters for understanding this particular morning is something else entirely. Before Congress, before the Air Force, Lieu worked financial fraud cases. He understands how money moves, how transfers get structured, and more importantly, how they get hidden. He knows what a wire transfer record looks like before anyone has had the chance to explain it away. Lieu spent 6 weeks preparing for this morning. His staff was under strict instruction not to discuss what he was bringing into the chamber. The single sheet of paper on his desk when he sat down was placed face down. Nobody on the Republican side of the aisle, nobody on Bondi's legal team, and nobody in the press gallery knew what number was on it. That is the thing about a bank record. You cannot retroactively amend it if you do not know it exists. The hearing was Senate Judiciary Committee, room 226 of the Dirksen Senate Office Building, 10:47 in the morning. Pam Bondi had been at the witness table since 10:15, flanked by 2 attorneys. The first 90 minutes covered standard ground. Department of Justice budget allocations, prosecutorial discretion guidelines, federal case backlog statistics. Republican members offered her pre-approved questions. Democratic members pressed on Epstein file transfers and the 23 terminated investigations. Bondi deflected each one with practiced composure. By the second hour, she looked, as she always looks by the second hour, like a woman who has decided she will survive this the way she has survived every other hearing. At 11:19, Chairman Durbin recognized Lieu for his 5 minutes. Lieu stood. No folder, no document stack, just the single sheet face down to his right and the posture of a man who has been waiting 6 weeks for this exact moment. I have been tracking this for 6 weeks, and I obtained this record through a formal committee document request that was processed 4 days ago. I want to be precise about the timeline. He looked directly at Bondi. Attorney General Bondi, I want to talk to you about a wire transfer, specifically a wire transfer of $847,000 processed on March 7, 2024, originating from a shell entity registered in the Cayman Islands and routed through a domestic intermediary account to a recipient account held at a Florida financial institution. Bondi's expression did not change. She had prepared for document questions. She had prepared for Epstein questions. She had prepared for questions about the 23 terminated investigations. She had, her attorneys believed, prepared for everything. Do you have any knowledge of that transaction, Attorney General Bondi? 3 seconds of silence. Congressman, the Department of Justice does not comment on specific financial transactions that may or may not be subject to ongoing investigative review. The characterization of any particular transfer as relevant to pending matters requires consultation with appropriate departmental personnel, and I am not in a position to confirm or deny the parameters of any specific financial inquiry in an open setting. That is not what I asked. Lieu's voice carried the flat, controlled authority of someone who has spent years inside courtrooms where words have consequences. I asked whether you have any knowledge of that transaction, yes or no. Senator, I am not in a position to characterize my knowledge of matters that may intersect with active departmental review processes in a setting that does not allow for appropriate context. Lieu nodded once. He placed his hand on the face-down sheet of paper. I am going to read you a number, $847,000. That is the exact figure. Do you have any recollection of a transaction involving that precise amount? Bondi's right hand moved to the edge of the table. Her senior attorney leaned in close. She did not look at him. Her eyes remained on Lieu. Congressman, I would need significantly more context before I could address any question about a specific financial figure in a public proceeding. If you are still watching, hit the like button right now. Drop a comment below. Because what Lieu just did is something every former prosecutor in that building recognized immediately. He did not show her the document. He gave her the number and watched what her body did with it. He picked up the sheet of paper and turned it over. The document is a certified bank wire transfer confirmation retrieved directly from the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network database. That is the federal system known as FINCEN that tracks domestic and international wire transfers above reporting thresholds. The retrieval was authorized by a formal Senate Judiciary Committee subpoena executed 14 days ago. The date on this record is March 7, 2024. The originating account belongs to a registered Cayman Islands entity called Meridian Consulting Group, LLC. The destination account is a personal account registered in the state of Florida. The amount confirmed, $847,000. He turned the document so every camera in the room could capture the FINCEN letterhead, the verification code, and the amount printed in the transfer confirmation block. Attorney General Bondi, at your confirmation hearing on February 11th of this year, Senator Whitehouse asked you directly whether you had received any financial compensation from entities or individuals connected to the Epstein investigation or associated proceedings. You testified under oath that you had not. He paused. This transfer was processed on March 7, 2024. 11 months before your confirmation hearing. He set the document down. Was your February 11th testimony accurate? The chamber went absolutely still. Not the ordinary quiet of a hearing room, but the specific heavy stillness of a room in which everyone present has just understood simultaneously that a document and a sworn statement cannot both be true. Bondi's jaw tightened. Her left hand moved toward her water glass and stopped halfway. Both attorneys leaned in simultaneously and began writing. The speed of their writing, the rapid, tight handwriting of people building legal architecture under time pressure, was visible to the cameras positioned along the committee dais. Congressman, the Department of Justice takes congressional testimony obligations with the utmost seriousness, and I am committed to full transparency with this committee. However, the document you have presented raises questions that require careful review of the underlying context of the transaction you are referencing, including the nature of the entity involved, the characterization of the transfer itself, and whether it falls within the scope of the question as originally posed in my confirmation proceeding. Director, Lieu said, his voice unchanged. That is not an answer to whether your February 11th testimony was accurate. I asked you a yes or no question. He looked at her with the expression of a military prosecutor who has put the evidence in front of the committee and is now letting the record do its work. Was your testimony at your confirmation hearing on February 11th of this year, in which you stated under oath that you had not received financial compensation from entities or individuals connected to the Epstein investigation, accurate? 11 seconds of silence. 12. 13. Bondi's senior attorney rose from his chair. Congressman, I need to advise my client that responding to this question in an open setting without the opportunity to review the complete context of the document you have presented and assess its relevance to the specific language of the confirmation hearing question may implicate significant legal considerations. Chairman Durbin's voice came from the dais. Flat and final. The witness will answer the question. 14 seconds of additional silence. Both cameras locked on Bondi. Her expression had gone flat in the way faces go flat when every available response has been evaluated and none of them are safe. Her attorney spoke again, his voice low and precise. Attorney General, on advice of counsel, I am recommending you invoke your Fifth Amendment right. That is the constitutional right that protects a witness from testifying against themselves with respect to this line of questioning. Bondi looked at her attorney for 2 seconds. A small, almost imperceptible nod. Congressman, on advice of counsel, I am invoking my Fifth Amendment right and declining to answer questions regarding the transaction you have referenced and its relationship to my February confirmation testimony. Ted Lieu looked at the cameras. The Attorney General of the United States just invoked her Fifth Amendment right in response to a question about whether her Senate confirmation testimony was accurate. He paused for exactly 3 seconds. She could have said yes. She's been saying the equivalent of yes for 11 months. Today, when this committee placed a certified FINCEN wire transfer record on the record, she invoked the Fifth. The American people can draw their own conclusions. By the time the hearing ended, the FINCEN document, the confirmation hearing transcript, and the FIFTH amendment invocation had been independently verified by 3 news organizations. The timeline held every time. The transfer processed 11 months before the confirmation hearing in which Bondi testified no such compensation existed. Within 17 minutes, the clip was moving. Legal analysts on every network used identical language. A Fifth Amendment invocation by a sitting cabinet official in response to a question about the accuracy of her Senate confirmation testimony is, according to every former federal prosecutor this committee has consulted, without precedent in the documented history of confirmation oversight. Former Department of Justice officials were unanimous. You do not invoke the Fifth Amendment in response to a question about whether your testimony was accurate unless answering that question would expose you to criminal liability for giving false testimony under oath. A denial costs nothing. The Fifth Amendment cost everything. The factual predicate for a perjury referral under 18 U.S.C. 1001, the federal statute that makes it a crime to lie to Congress and carries up to 5 years in federal prison, has been established on the record of this committee as of 11:27 this morning. Ted Lieu walked into room 226 with a single sheet of paper. Bondi could not confirm her own testimony was accurate. A certified FINCEN record showed exactly why. 83 seconds of silence, 1 bank record, and a Fifth Amendment that answered the question she refused to answer herself. Subscribe right now because the perjury referral vote is scheduled for 72 hours from now, and this committee does not stop at motions. Share this everywhere because the next document this committee has been holding is larger than this one.